right, congratulations on completing all 12 squares of the 2024 Sampler Blanket Crochet Along project. Each square featured a completely different stitch that I hope you enjoyed playing with. I did have you in mind the entire time making this project, and I hope you had fun. Right off the bat, I do want to mention that if your squares are not all exactly the same size, or if your squares didn't hit that 13-inch wide by 13-inch long dimension that I put on all the patterns, it's okay. I anticipated that happening, and I made accommodations for there being differences in sizes, and so you're fine. Don't undo anything. We're gonna work with it. As long as your squares are at least no bigger or smaller than 1 inch apart from each other, then we can work with that. I didn't have a perfect dimension on any of my squares either. All you perfectionists out there, I want you to know it's okay. Now is the time to make any corrections or fixes, because the next step that we're going to be doing, there's no going backwards. It's only moving forward. So we want to make sure that we're good with our squares now before the next step. What we're doing next in this blanket project is adding a single crochet border around each individual square. I am using a rich brown color because it complements and works with every single color that I have utilized for the 12 squares in this blanket. It just looks great, and by using one color to border every single square, we're adding a uniformity. We're starting to connect them together. If you are using a different color palette than I'm using, try to find a darker color. I think that's the key thing right there, is finding a darker color that will work with every single color that you are using in your blanket currently, that they all complement well. Also, try to stick with the same brand and same size yarn that you've used throughout the project. For me, I'm still using Cascade 220 Superwash Merino, and I just love this yarn. It's worked out great so far, but you do not want to change up yarn at any part of the project because it can affect the consistency of the stitches and the sizing of the project. Also, we're sticking with the same crochet hook we've used throughout the entire project. We're not changing anything up there. By the time that we have finished adding the single crochet border around each of the squares, we're going to come back and we're going to check them again to see how close they are to being the exact same size. If you need to block your square, you will want to do that after adding the single crochet border. By the time your squares have finished blocking and drying, we will be ready for our next video that we'll be releasing. The next video will be joining the squares together. Right, now let's go ahead and grab all of our squares, grab our materials like our yarn and our crochet hook, and let's get started. For square number 1, we did the flower bud stitch. We're going to begin this border by creating a slip knot and then attaching our crochet hook. Start the border by working in the upper corner. Slip stitch into the first stitch to attach the yarn to the project, and then chain 1. We're going to single crochet in every stitch along the top of the work, and I'll meet up with you in corner number 1 to show you how to work the corner. In the very last stitch, which is also the corner stitch, we will make 3 single crochets. The first single crochet actually counts as your last stitch for this side. The second single crochet is our turning stitch, which gives us a smooth transition to the next side. And the third single crochet stitch is actually the first stitch on the next side of the work. Then rotate your square. Now we're working along the side of the work, or we're working along the sides of every row. We're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. If you recall the pattern, each row ended or began with a single crochet stitch, so it makes it super easy to just make 1 stitch per row. To help you out if you're concerned about count, we made 39 rows in our square, so you should have 39 single crochet stitches along this side. For corner number 2, go ahead and make your 3 single crochet stitches, and then rotate your square. We're now working along the bottom of the square or amongst the foundation row. If you remember what we did in row 1, we made our group and then we skipped 2 chains. For the bottom of the square, we want to make 1 single crochet stitch around every chain and 1 single crochet stitch in the bottom of every stitch. Now, it may not look as clean and clear as making 1 single crochet stitch around every chain, but that's what I want you to focus on. In corner number 3, go ahead and make your 3 single crochet stitches and then rotate your square. Now we're working on the other side of the work. So we've already done one side. Repeat what we did over there on this side as well, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. In corner number 4, we are only making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of that last row. The reason for this is because this corner already has 1 single crochet stitch in it. In fact, that was our very first single crochet stitch we made for the entire border. After making your 2 single crochet stitches, slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet to close your border. Then cut a tail long enough for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and then weave in your ends just to clean everything up. The plowing seed square. We're going to go ahead and start the border for the plowing seed square by making a slip stitch in the top corner stitch of this square. Chain 1 and then make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top of this square. Remember to keep count. We should have a total of 55 stitches along this top side. When you reach the first corner, which is going to also be the very last stitch of this top side of the square, we're going to make 3 single crochet stitches. The first single crochet stitch counts as the last stitch for this side, the second single crochet stitch counts as our turning stitch, and the third single crochet stitch will actually count as the first single crochet stitch for the next side of our work. Go ahead and rotate your project. Now when it comes to the plowing seeds pattern, we're actually going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row that begins or ends with a half double crochet stitch. We don't want to put anything in the side of a row that began or ended with a slip stitch. I tried it, it ended up getting really messy. So go ahead and continue across this side of the square. Work your stitches loosely. It's going to be very important. Having a tight stitch is just going to bunch everything. So try to focus on having a light tension with your stitches. Continue on and I'll meet you in the next corner. When you reach corner number 2, we're going to go ahead and make our 3 single crochet stitches in the last row that we will encounter. And then rotate our square. For the bottom side of the square, we're actually working into the foundation row of this pattern. I don't want to work in the chain though. We're going to work between the single crochet stitches. So go ahead and work your crochet hook into row 1, between stitches, all the way across. You should again end with a total of 55 stitches, and that will include the third stitch of corner number 2 and the first stitch of corner number 3. When you reach corner number 3, go ahead and make your 3 single crochet stitches in that last stitch and rotate your square. We're going to work this next side the exact same way we worked the first side, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row that began or ended with a half double crochet stitch and skipping over the slip stitch rows. Continue along the side and I'll meet you in corner number 4. In corner number 4, we are only going to make 2 single crochet stitches because there's already a single crochet stitch in that space. So to clean up and tie off this border, we're just going to slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch to close. And then go ahead and cut your tail long enough for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work. And then the last thing that you have to do is just weave in that end, and you're done with your border. Doesn't that look nice? The layered cake square. We're going to begin the border for this square by making a slip knot and attaching our crochet hook. Then we're going to make our first stitch in the upper corner stitch, slip stitching into that stitch just to attach the yarn to the project, and then chain one to set ourselves up. Make one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across, and I will meet you in the first corner to show you how we will work the corners. Corner number 1 is also the very last stitch of the top side of this square. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches into this stitch. The first single crochet stitch counts as the last stitch for that side. The second single crochet stitch counts as the turning stitch. And the third single crochet stitch counts as our first stitch on the next side of the square. Go ahead and rotate your square. Okay, working along the side of our rows, we're just making one single crochet stitch in the side of every row. Every row should be a half double crochet stitch, so this should be sufficient and enough space for you to get all the way down the side of your work. Now we did make a total of 47 rows, so you should have a total of 47 single crochet stitches along the side of the square, including the third stitch of corner number 1 and the first stitch of corner number 2. Once you reach the second corner, we're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in the side of the first row, or the very last row that you're going to encounter. And then rotate your square. We are now working the foundation of the square. We do not want to work into the foundation chain. We want to work into row 1. So go ahead and place your crochet hook between the stitches to make your single crochet stitch. It's okay. You should still be able to end with 50 stitches along the bottom of this square. Once you get to corner number 3, go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches in that last stitch, and then rotate your square. We're going to work this side the exact same way we worked the other side of the square, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. Go ahead and finish off this side of your square, and I will meet you in corner number 4 to show you how to finish this border and tie off your work. In corner number 4, the difference is we're only making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of this last row. Why? Because we already have 1 single crochet stitch in this stitch spot that we began with. So to close this border, just slip stitch into the top of the very first single crochet stitch, and you're done. All we have to do next is just cut our yarn, leaving a long enough tail for us to weave in the end, and then tie off the work. All you have left to do is weave in your ends. Great job! And this is what it looks like when it's complete. Sometimes this square in particular comes off a little bit long. Just by pulling it to the side, you'll help to reshape it. The arrow square. Start by creating a slip knot with your yarn, attaching your crochet hook. We're going to begin in the first stitch of the upper corner of your square. Slip stitch into the first stitch just to attach your yarn to the project. And then chain 1. We're going to single crochet in every stitch all the way across the top of our square. Go ahead and continue, and I'll meet you in corner number 1. Once you reach corner number 1, this is also the very last stitch of the top side of our square. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in this last stitch. The first single crochet counts as our last stitch for this side, the second single crochet counts as our turning stitch, and the third single crochet counts as the very first stitch on the next side. Go ahead and rotate your square. Let's start working on the sides of our rows. You're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row that begins or ends with a single crochet, and you're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row that begins or ends with a double crochet stitch. This is going to help us to even things out. If you're finding that you're still bunching or ruffling, go ahead and either add a stitch or make less stitches in the side. Really feel out your tension of your square. Continue on and I'll meet you in corner number 2. In corner number 2, which is also the last row that we're going to work a stitch in, we're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in the side of that row and then rotate our square. We're now working along the foundation side of our square. We do not want to work into the foundation row chains. We actually want to work into row 1. So place your crochet hook between the stitches to make your single crochets. Once you reach corner number 3, make your 3 single crochet stitches and rotate your square. We're going to repeat the same thing on this side of the work that we did on the other side of the work, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row that began or ended with a single crochet, and 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row that began or ended with a double crochet stitch. Again, feel out your work. If by doing this you're noticing some ruffling or bunching, adjust so that way you're making less stitches or more stitches to make your square lay flat. In corner number 4, we're only making 2 single crochet stitches because we technically already have 1 single crochet stitch that we began the entire border with. So to close the border, just slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch. Then grab your scissors, cut a tail long enough for you to weave in that tail, tie off your work, and you're done. And this is what it'll look like. Make sure that everything lays flat. Oh, it's so beautiful. The fillet square. With the fillet square, we have 2 things going on. One, the dark purple color of the square we actually made is a little hard for me to show you what to do, so I'm going to substitute in this green color. Makes it so much easier for us to see what's going on. Now this particular square already has a border around it, so when we go to slip stitch to attach the border color, we're going to actually slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of that upper corner. Slip stitch just to attach our yarn, and then chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across. Go ahead and complete the top of this square. I'll meet you in the first corner to show you how we will attack the corner. In corner number 1, we're going to look for those 3 stitches that are already in the corner. We're going to single crochet into the top of the first stitch, make 3 single crochet stitches in the top of the second stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the top of the 3rd stitch. At this point, we'll be able to rotate our square and start working along the next side. We're now going to go ahead and continue making 1 single crochet stitch in the top of every stitch all the way down this side. Continue across. I'll meet you in corner number 2. In corner number 2, go ahead and find those 3 stitches in the corner there. Single crochet in the top of the first, make 3 single crochet stitches in the top of the second, and 1 single crochet stitch in the top of the third. And then rotate your square and continue making 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Go ahead and repeat this for corner number 3, and I'll meet you in corner number 4 to show you how that one looks a little bit different. In corner number 4, we have those 3 stitches again. We're going to single crochet in the top of the first, make 3 single crochet stitches in the top of the second, and then there's already a single crochet stitch in the top of the third, and that was the first single crochet stitch that we made for our border. So to close this border, all we're going to do is slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch, and we're done. You can now grab your scissors, cut off a long enough tail for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and your border is complete. Great job! And this is what it'll look like when you are all finished, and what it'll look like in the purple color that will actually be attached to your project. The little nub square. We're going to begin this border in the upper corner, slip stitch into the very first stitch just to attach the yarn to the work. And then chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top. Continue on and I'll meet you in corner number 1. Corner number 1 is also the very last stitch of the top of this square. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in this stitch. The first single crochet counts as the last stitch of the top. The second single crochet stitch counts as our turning stitch, and the third single crochet stitch counts as our first stitch on the next side of the square. Go ahead and rotate your square, and now let's start working on the sides. We're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every single row. If it'll help, feel free to stretch your work to help you see those rows. As a reminder, there are a total of 53 rows, so you'll want a total of 53 stitches along the side of your square. Continue on, I'll meet you in corner number 2. In corner number 2, that's also the side of the very last row we're going to work into. Make 3 single crochet stitches and rotate your square. We're not going to be working into the foundation row of our square, but we do not want to work into the foundation row chain. We're going to work into row 1. So working our crochet hook between stitches of row 1, make 1 single crochet stitch between each stitch. In corner number 3, this is also the last stitch of the bottom of the square. Make your 3 single crochet stitches and rotate your square. Repeat working this side of your square the exact same way you worked the other side of your square, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every single row. Continue up this side and I will meet you in corner number 4 to show you how that corner is just a tad bit different. In corner number 4, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in that corner stitch because there's already 1 single crochet stitch in this space. That was the first single crochet stitch that we made to start our border. Slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch to close off our border. Then go ahead and grab your scissors, cut off a long enough tail for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and you're done. Oh, it finished so beautifully. Great job. The granny stitch square. We're going to start in the upper corner stitch. There should be a chain 2 there that we started with for that row. We're going to slip stitch into that second chain to attach our yarn to our project. And then chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way across the top of this square. Continue on and I will meet you in the first corner to show you how to work the corners. Corner number 1 is also the very last stitch of this side. Make 3 single crochet stitches in this corner stitch. First single crochet is the last stitch on that side, the second single crochet is our turning stitch, and the third single crochet stitch will be the first stitch on the next side of our work. Working the side of the granny stitch for the border, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. Now here in this first row, we already have 1 single crochet stitch from the 3rd single crochet of the corner, so we just make 1 more single crochet stitch in the side of that row. And then continue making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row all the way down. For corner number 2, we actually had our first row be just single crochet stitches. So when we get to the very last row, make sure it is your single crochet stitch row. Make 3 single crochet stitches in that corner stitch and then rotate your square. We're now looking at the bottom of our square, or where our foundation row would be. We don't want to work in our foundation row. We want to work around row 1. Go ahead and make 1 single crochet stitch between each stitch all the way across. With corner number 3, just make 3 single crochet stitches in that corner stitch and rotate your square. We're now working the other side of our square, working along the sides of rows. Continue making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row, and I will meet you in corner number 4. For corner number 4, go ahead and make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of that last row, and then slip stitch into the very first single crochet stitch that we made to begin the border. This will close off our border. And this is what your square will look like when you have completed the border. The floating flowers square. Start by slip stitching in the first stitch in the upper corner to attach the yarn to the project. Chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top of this square. Continue across and I'll meet you in the first corner. The first corner is also the very last stitch of the top of the square. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in that last stitch. The first single crochet is the last stitch on the top, the second single crochet is our turning stitch, and the third single crochet is the first stitch on the next side of the project. We're going to make 1 more single crochet stitch in the side of that first row we're encountering, because we're going to want to make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. If it'll help you out, go ahead and stretch your work so that way you can identify your rows, but all you're going to do is make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. Continue across and I will meet you in corner number 2. In corner number 2, we're going to go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches in that corner. Rotate our work. Now we're looking at the foundation row side of the square. We do not want to work into the foundation row chain. We want to work between stitches. Go ahead and make 1 single crochet stitch between each stitch all the way across the row. In corner number 3, go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches. And then rotate your square. On this side of the work, go ahead and continue making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. In corner number 4, we're actually going to go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches in this corner, and then slip stitch into the very first single crochet stitch that we made to begin the border. Then all you're going to do is take your scissors, cut a long enough tail for you to weave in your ends, and tie up your work. And this is what your square will look like when your border is complete. is Shells in V square. For this demonstration, I am also using a different color to show you the border because this dark purple color is just a little dark. I want you to be able to see what's going on. Again, we're going to start by slip stitching in the first stitch of the upper corner just to attach the yarn to the project. Then we're going to chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in that first stitch. Make 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch. And then we have a chain. We're going to make 1 single crochet stitch around each chain for a total of 4 single crochet stitches around this chain. And then single crochet in the top of the stitch. And 4 single crochet stitches around this next chain. Repeat this all the way across until you get to the next corner. I'll meet you there. In corner number 1, we have 1 stitch here that ends the row. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in this last corner stitch. The first single crochet counts as the last stitch for this side, the second single crochet counts as our turning stitch, and the third single crochet counts as the first stitch for the next side of the row, and then rotate your square. We are now going to be working along the side of this square, along the side of every row. We're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. Here's a tip though. I want you to focus on making a very loose stitch. Stretch your work for visibility, but the idea is 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. For corner number 2, we're going to make a total of 5 single crochet stitches, and here's why. We're going to start with our 3 single crochet stitches, the first stitch being the last stitch of this side, the second stitch being our turning stitch, and the third stitch being the first stitch on the next side of the work. And then we will rotate our square, so we're looking at the bottom or the foundation row. Now here at the bottom, we actually skipped some chains when we started this square, so we're going to make 3 more single crochet stitches to work our way around those chains. Then work 1 single crochet in the bottom of the stitch and 3 single crochet stitches around the chain space. Now I did try to work 4 single crochet stitches around the chain space, but it crowded. It was too much. So if you're able to work 4 single crochet stitches around this chain, then go for it. I was not able to make it work. Corner number 3 actually was the bottom of a V-stitch where we ended the row for row 1. So we're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in the bottom of that stitch and then rotate our square. Make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row, just like we did on the other side. Again, I only made 1 single crochet in the side of every row because this was the only way I could get my square to lay flat. If you can put 2 single crochet stitches in the side of your row, that would be most ideal. In corner number 4, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in that last stitch and then slip stitch into the top of the very first single crochet stitch that we made to close our border. And your border is complete. All you have to do next is grab your scissors, cut a tail long enough for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and then clean up your square. This is what your square should look like when you are done. And this is the purple version. The waffle square. We're going to start by slip stitching into the very first stitch, which is actually the second chain here to begin the row. Slip stitch into this chain to attach the yarn to the project. Then chain 1. And make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top of this square. Continue across and I'll meet you in corner number 1. Corner number 1 is also the very last stitch of this side. Make 3 single crochet stitches in the top of the stitch. The first single crochet is the last stitch of this side, second single crochet is our turning stitch, and the third single crochet is the first stitch on the next side of the work. Go ahead and rotate your square. Now we're going to make one single crochet stitch in the side of every row. Yes, they are double crochet stitches, and normally we would make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row, but the post stitches actually shrink the stitch. So we're only able to make 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row in order for the square to lay flat. Go ahead and continue down the side of this square, and I'll meet you in the next corner. In corner number 2, go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches in that last corner, and then rotate your square. We are now looking at the foundation row of this square. We do not want to work into the foundation row. We want to make our stitches between stitches. So make your single crochet stitch between each double crochet stitch. Repeat this across the bottom of your square. I'll meet you in corner number 3. For corner number 3, go ahead and make your 3 single crochet stitches in this corner, and then rotate your square. Repeat what we did on the other side of your square, making 1 single crochet stitch in the side of every row. Continue across, and I'll meet you in corner number 4 to show you how to close this border. In corner number 4, make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of this last row, and then slip stitch into the first single crochet stitch that we made to close your border. Next thing you'll do is just cut your yarn, leaving a tail long enough for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and then weave in your ends to clean everything up. This is what your square will look like when you're done. Great job! The sweet pea square. This square already has a border around it, so we're actually making our border into a border. Find a stitch of the corner here and slip stitch into that stitch to attach our yarn to the project. Then chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top. Continue, and I'll meet you in corner number 1. In corner number 1, we're going to be looking for the corner where there are 5 double crochet stitches here. We're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the first 2 stitches. In the 3rd stitch though, we're going to make 3 single crochet stitches to make that corner edge. And then make 1 more single crochet stitch in the 4th and 5th double crochet stitch of this corner. And then after working your corner, just make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way down to corner number 2. In corner number 2, we're going to find 5 double crochet stitches again. Make 1 single crochet stitch in the first 2 double crochet stitches, 3 single crochet stitches in the 3rd stitch, and 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of this corner. Rotate your square, and then continue making 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across. You're going to repeat what we've done for our corners with corner number 3. Go ahead and continue on, and I'll just meet up with you in corner number 4. In corner number 4, you're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the first 2 double crochet stitches, make 3 single crochet stitches in that 3rd double crochet stitch, and then slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet stitch that we made to begin our border. And your border is complete. And this is what your square will look like when your border is done. The zigzag square. Start by slip stitching in the first stitch in the upper corner to attach the yarn to the project. Chain 1 and make 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way across the top of this square. Continue across, and I'll meet you in the first corner. The first corner is also the very last stitch of the top of the square. We're going to make 3 single crochet stitches in that last stitch. The first single crochet is the last stitch on the top, the second single crochet is our turning stitch, and the third single crochet is the first stitch on the next side of the project. We're going to make 1 more single crochet stitch in the side of that first row we're encountering, because we're going to want to make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. If it'll help you out, go ahead and stretch your work so that way you can identify your rows, but all you're going to do is make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. Continue across and I will meet you in corner number 2. In corner number 2, we're going to go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches in that corner. Rotate our work. Now we're looking at the foundation row side of the square. We do not want to work into the foundation row chain. We want to work between stitches. Go ahead and make 1 single crochet stitch between each stitch all the way across the row. In corner number 3, go ahead and make 3 single crochet stitches. And then rotate your square. On this side of the work, go ahead and continue making 2 single crochet stitches in the side of every row. In corner number 4, make 2 single crochet stitches in the side of this last row, and then slip stitch into the first single crochet stitch that we made to close your border. Next thing you'll do is just cut your yarn, leaving a tail long enough for you to weave in your ends, tie off your work, and then weave in your ends to clean everything up. And this is what your square will look like when your border is complete. Now that all 12 of our squares have borders around them, the next step is kind of up to you, if you want to block your squares or not. By blocking your squares, we're going to continue to try to get them as close as possible to being the exact same size, which honestly will help tremendously when we go to join them together. I'll put links in the description section below for the blocking kit that I use. I just got mine off of Amazon. I actually also got additional stainless steel T-pins, and I'll put a link to that in the description section as well if you'd like to take a peek. In the next video, we're going to be joining all of these squares together using a really cool technique that I think you'll have a lot of fun with. It's really neat. If you are not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you do subscribe so that way as soon as that video drops, you'll get the notification. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.